G'day folks, and welcome to this review of Herman Luttmann's Crowbar, the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc, June 6, 1944. This was published by Flying Pig Games in 2019. It is, importantly, the spiritual successor to one of my favourite games of all time in magnificent style. I've spoken about this a couple of times. This is my old Victory Point game design, a little it's a wonderful game, designed by Herman Luttmann. It was recently republished as a boxed version, which I don't have because I really love my little non-boxed version from Victory Point Games. This was published back, I think, in 2012. It is this and this. They're both push your luck styles of games. Now, what you're looking at here is the completion of a game that I've played with my two kids. They're aged 9 and 11. And we tend to play games like Santorini. What else do we play? We tend to play light games, the downfall of Pompeii, where the kids get to throw little cubes in the volcano. We play card games, Uno, stuff like that. But I thought, well, it's a light to moderate complexity game, but it's a kind of game where I can manage the administration of the game and the kids can just focus on their units. So I thought I'd give it a go. They finished this game, and both my kids said, "Wow, this is my favourite game ever." And I was like, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah. They love it. They love it." And I said, "Well, what do you love about it?" And they said, "Oh, just the rolling of the dice and moving your units." And my son loved placing the incoming fire markers. And they were so excited about it that they immediately said, "Can we play again? Can we play again?" I'm like, "Yeah, certainly." So I enjoy playing it. They enjoy playing it. And I'm really excited that they enjoy it because, as I said, I can manage the heavier, complex administration of the rules. And I just say to them, "Okay, guys, now it's time to activate your units. What do you want to do?" And they have that agency and control over what they do and how far they want to push their luck. I want to talk about how the game plays out and what it feels like. So here's the box cover. You can see it's quite a sturdy box, about 4 inches thick. Very solid box design, glossy cover, cover art in the back. You get 252 1-inch counters, and these are beautiful production quality, big, sturdy, thick counters. This is a big map as well. It's a 22 by 34 inch mounted map, so no plexiglass needed. You have 18 timing cards, this deck of timing cards, which I'll talk about, sorry about the glare there. 4 unique movement dice, which are these things here. I'll talk about how they work. You have 10 six-sided combat dice. You'll roll these in various forms of combat, close combat, open fire, combat, hasty fire, things like that. You have a game track chart shown just off the board to the top left there. You actually have, it says 1 player aid card, but you actually have 2 player aid cards and a colourful rulebook. Some minor concerns with the rulebook, but I'll talk about that later on. As I said, it's a light to medium complexity game, 1 to 3 players. So kind of designed as a solo game along the lines of In Magnificent Style. And incidentally, I have playthroughs of this on the channel if you want to check that out. Love it. This is slightly more complex than In Magnificent Style. Slightly more. There's more decisions for you to make, which I love. Herman has taken In Magnificent Style and he's kind of upgraded it to just the next level up. So 1 to 3 players, you can play it solo, you can play it 2-player co-op, 3-player co-op, or 2 or 3 player versus mode, which I haven't tried out. So obviously playing with my kids, we play cooperative, and the way the system works is you'll start in your landing craft assault in their starting positions, all lined up at C, at start position over here, and you will, well, for the C, there's a special preliminary phase where you'll try to make a landing. Inevitably, not all boats will reach the shore initially. When you reach the shore, you fire your J projected grappling hooks. They tend to fail. You'll have German positions set up all over the place, and you'll see these Germans here. These are grenadiers. These are German reinforcements. But at the start of the game, you'll have a lot of these HKA regiments and some machine guns and a flat gun positioned out here. You'll have a command bunker out here. So Germans all along the front. You'll have this initial preliminary fire, which you'll place bombardment markers on all these German units, and you'll hit the beach, throw your grappling hooks, your J projectors, and begin to advance. Now, during the normal course of play, once you reach sort of what I call my kids the is the battlefield, the main area of fighting, you begin your turn with these 4 movement dice. You will basically activate 1 company at a time, and you'll work through the 4 units of that company. You'll activate this group, and you can roll up to 4 dice, 1 at a time, until you decide to consolidate. Now you can consolidate immediately if you want. Now once you consolidate, you move your rally point marker up to where your unit is, and they end their turn. So you flip that rally point marker to activated, and you move on to the next unit. They'll do whatever they want to do until they decide to consolidate. They flip their rally point marker over, you move on to the next unit, and just repeat that throughout the units until you've gone through all your units. You do a brief end phase where you flip all the markers back over and tidy things up, and you start again. So it's your focus throughout the game is on activations. There's relatively minimal administrative oversight. Your focus is almost entirely just on the decisions you're making. You are constantly making these decisions about what to do. As I said, whenever you activate a unit, let's say I activate this unit out here in the far right of the battlefield, Easy Company. You'll notice there's Easy Company, Dog Company, and Fox Company as part of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. Okay, so let's say this is my son's sector. He activates this unit out here. He has 4 movement dice to activate, and they range from, well, there are technical terms for these. I think it's like basically easy, a little bit more difficult, a little bit more crazy, and black is very dangerous. So I tend to line the dice up for the kids like this, and I say, all right, guys, how dangerously do you want to move? And my daughter will usually say, oh, well, I'll move cautiously. And I'll say, I'll move cautiously. And my son says, yeah, I want to move really dangerously. And you can see that's a hit. So you'll take one of these dice and you'll roll and basically adhere to the results. This result means you draw a card from the event deck, which can be one of several things. It either advances the time increment track, which progresses as close towards the end of the scenario. It will increase the German counterattack track, which increases, you can see at the bottom here, increases the number of German counterattacks. They come one wave at a time. Or it'll advance the relief column, which again brings us closest to the end of the scenario, but by us being relieved by a relief column, which is good for us. So that's the time advance result. And let's say my son, who happened to roll a heck of a lot of these, hence why one of his units is still way back on the beach. So my daughter managed to reach these guns up here. She almost reached this road. He got all her troops quite advanced. This poor unit here got stuck on the beach and just kept rolling these event results. So my son rolls again, and yep, that's exactly the kind of roll he would make. It must be something with this side of the board. Time advance marker. He says, I say to him, all right, mate, do you want to stop here? Do you want to consolidate here, or do you want to keep going? He's like, I want to get off this beach. So he rolls again, and finally, okay, he rolls an advance marker. But of course, we're talking about this unit down here. What can you do? You notice this arrow here with 2 dots. That means 2 advances, as opposed to this, which is 1 advance, as opposed to this, which is 3 advances. Now you resolve hits first. So in this case, it's a shell marker with an explosion marker with a hollow gap. That means it's a variable number of hits. You'll always take at least 1 hit, and you may take multiple hits based on how far you are from your rally point and proximity to enemy forces. In this case, I think it's just the 1 hit. Once you've taken hits, and by taking hits, you just take a unit off the board and replace it with the next lowest level, which will be sort of an 8-step unit, just like that. You then decide what to do with your advances. Now, most of the time, well, often, you'll be using your advances to advance. But in this case, you'll notice he has some grenadiers right in front of him. Now, he's got some choices here, and often what my son loved doing is what's called a hasty fire. So the the player aids summarise the special actions you can do to spend your advances. You can conduct a reconnaissance in force, which reveals incoming fire markers. You can make a grappling attempt if you're still on the beach. You can regroup to remove shaken or pinned markers. As I said, my son loved doing these hasty fires. You roll a number of combat dice equal to half your SP rounded up, or, as I told my son, you just count the number of soldiers on your marker, 5 dice. You take 5 dice, and for every 5 or 6 you roll, and I have to say he was also very lucky in rolling 5s and 6s, that's probably why he loved it. You place incoming fire markers on an adjacent enemy unit. Now this keeps their head down. It's incoming fire. We don't know the effects of that fire until we get a bit closer and take a look. So they have 3 incoming fire markers on them, which reduces their strength by 3, which reduces their strength from 3 to 0. So placing these incoming fire markers is a good way to reduce the threat of German units. As I said, you can also spend those advanced actions to conduct a reconnaissance in force. So let's say there's incoming fire markers on there. He can conduct a reconnaissance in force on an adjacent space to reveal all incoming fire markers. Let's say he flipped those over, he gets a miss, a pin, and a hit. What does that mean? Roll a hit, you just flip the Germans over, they're now reduced. He places a pinned marker on them, which reduces their effectiveness in combat, and he's feeling pretty chuffed because he's hurt the Germans. Maybe on a subsequent turn, or maybe right at that point he might consolidate and flip his rally marker over and stop. But as I said, my son loved to roll the dice, so he rolls again, and he gets an advance. Now, this barbed wire here is an obstacle, so it costs him an additional advance to move across there. So, 1 to advance to the space, 1 to cross the barbed wire, and he can now charge that German position, not with his rally marker, to engage in close combat. In close combat, it's a similar process. You add up the number of SPs halved, or the number of soldiers shown on your counter. You modify that by various things, so close combat is all summarized here. If he has an attached commander, if he has unit support, which he doesn't in this particular area because they're stuck way back on the beach. If they're flanked by having a unit sort of getting a friendly unit getting around their position. If he has a hero, things like that. He rolls a dice. He's looking for 6s in close combat. But these guys now only have 1 hit left. And if he eliminates them, they become captured prisoners of war, which give us victory points. And you just continue like that. So let's say he was most likely going to be successful here. Yep, there's a 6. He eliminates those Germans. The Germans will counterattack, of course, and cause some losses on him. And he'll reduce his steps. And you repeat until the scenario ends. This is a game where you're striving for victory points. And you get victory points from various sources, which we really loved. So I'll try to bring the board forward a bit. And you can just see, if I bring this sheet closer, this is our end game circumstance. Well, you'll notice what we're ultimately looking for. The Rangers were looking for these German guns on Pointe du Hoc. And there are all these possible German gun location positions. You can see my daughter has rushed up here into this wooded area to find the guns here. I think she found a gun somewhere along here. So you'll flip these counters over, and it may be dummy guns, it may be intercepted orders, it may be random things, maybe traps. There are a lot of traps that you encounter as well, which you may just be able to see off image up there, which can cause step losses to your units. Ideally though, as I said, you're looking for these guns. Now the quicker you capture these guns, the more victory points they're worth. On the first turn, they're worth 10 victory points each. On the second, I think they drop down to 5. By the 8th of June, they drop down to 2. You'll also encounter what are called fortunes of war. These are sort of still valuable intelligence or sort of secondary objectives, but not quite as important as the guns. You will then, you can see the big pile of captured German units up here. You can capture German units after defeating them in close combat. And we were pretty successful at close combat. You can see we've captured a lot of full strength German units. If they're at reduced strength, as these guys would have been as my son's unit moved in, they would be reduced strength units. But as I said, most of our units were full strength. We went charging in, and we really used the support rules quite effectively. As I said, we were really cooperating quite well. As I said, if you get adjacent units next to that enemy, you get extra dice. You have your battalion commanders, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Your company commanders and battalion commanders who can help a battalion commander. You can also you set up roadblocks along this main highway to get additional victory points. You get bonus victory points, and we get a lot of victory points from having a very timely relief. So I'll talk about battalion commander in a moment, but we got our relief column very early and got a lot of victory points for this timely relief. And then you lose victory points for ranger casualties. Now, we had a couple of units quite heavily reduced. Sometimes my daughter's units got really battered, and they were down to about 3 SPs at one point, but she managed to build them back up by a couple of good events towards the end. So one thing I haven't spoken about is the RNG on these markers. So whenever you roll a dice with an RNG, you draw either a Ranger event or a German event chip. And you'll notice this is a Ranger event. So you'll draw a counter from this cup. I can't remember how many counters there are. There's quite a lot of various events. And they're double-sided. So the yellow side is a Ranger event. In this case, we drew a heroic action, and my daughter drew this, and she could place a heroic action marker on one of her units. And she can later substitute that for a special re-roll or advantage. And the other side is a German event. So whatever you roll, an R or a G, you just draw a chit and flip it to its appropriate side. And there's a card summarizing all the various events. And they're much like in Magnificent Style, there are various events. You can open fire, heroic actions, various naval gunfire support and artillery support that you can draw upon. Really, really fascinating events to shape the nature of your advance. You'll notice this supply marker here. Now again, we got very lucky with our supplies. We never had a low ammo roll that applied, so we never needed to use those. But let me talk about your company commanders and battalion commanders. So you have 3 company commanders, 1 for each company, and a battalion commander who is up here. They enable you to gain certain commander bonuses. So your company commander bonuses let you re-roll a movement die. If my son has rolled an event, he was often trying to re-roll it and often rolling an event again. There are also, of course, I should point out, stop markers. If you roll stop, your turn ends immediately and you don't do anything further. Your commanders can reduce the cost of an obstacle by -1. So if my son was trying to cross that barbed wire and only rolled 1 advance, he can use his commander to add an advance to that. The other thing you can do is save your advance roll. So he could roll an arrow and say, I want to cross that barbed wire, I'll save it, and I'll roll the red die, and there's the other arrows I need, I'll use them to advance. You can add a combat die to close combat, and we were often using the commander bonuses for that, because getting that extra dice in close combat really helped us capture some German prisoners of war. You can order an open fire. I have to say we didn't use that very often. You can remove all shaken and pinned markers, didn't use that. And your battalion commander does all these things, plus he can draw a ranger chip at any time as an additional available bonus, can be attached to any ranger unit, and if unused, this is how we used our battalion commander, may move the relief column marker up 1 space. So we were really focused on saving our battalion commander to get our relief column up, and it paid off because you get a lot of victory points for the timely relief on the increment track. We're here at the end of the game on the 7th of June, sort of a day ahead of schedule. And let me talk about the strategies that we employed. So as I said, my son was pretty, he often wanted to start with the most dangerous dice, his decision, and just got very unlucky. Rolled a lot of time events, a heck of a lot of time events. I mean, he had a couple of turns where he was rolling stuff like this. My daughter and I, out here towards the left, were more cautious. We were often starting with the green die, making steady advances, and often stopping before we got to the red or black dice. And you can see the progress that we've made. This is my company in the middle here. I was often hanging back to help my son, so I could provide flanking support to his company. You can see the same thing on the left here. I was providing support for my daughter, and I had a lot of Germans up through the center here. Fox Company out on the left here, they have probably the easiest front to deal with, but they suffer the first counterattack. So my daughter was making good progress through here. She suffered the first counterattack, and she wiped out that German counterattack very quickly. Just great rolls in combat, cleared him out, and then my son suffered the next counterattack. That's basically the way the counterattack order works. I should point out, I haven't done so yet. You are only advancing down your column. So if I want to advance units, they just advance this way as such. You'd never go left to right or diagonally, but you can provide fire support. You can shift SPs. We never actually did it, but you can. You can, as a special action, redeploy any number of SPs into an adjacent column space. So you could, if my daughter was running low, I could have, with 2 advances, given her some of my units. Look at my company here, my unit here, still on 10 strength, 8 strength, 6 strength, 7 strength. So we did pretty well. As I said, my daughter suffered that counterattack, so she did suffer a lot of heavy losses among her units, which have kind of rebuilt. But managed to, rebuild and advance, and as I said, their favourite game. What else? In fact, sorry, that shouldn't be there. When you get a heroic action, you should put that, and that should go back in the cup. That's a little mistake we made, denying ourselves future heroic actions. So another great thing, there's a lot of sort of little tweaks, little thematic elements in the game. So you notice all these gun emplacements, barracks. They provide prepared defences, which help the Germans. The stars indicate where the possible gun locations go, so you can see we've cleared out possible gun locations here. There's this command bunker down here, and if you capture that command bunker early, and we were very lucky, we captured this pretty quickly in the game. My daughter quickly set up Rudder's battalion headquarters, which helps us as well. If you can capture the command bunker and set up Rudder's headquarters very early on, it helps you with subsequent events. So whenever we drew a German counterattack, because we had captured the command bunker space early on, we only advanced this 1 space instead of 2. So we only actually suffered 2 German counterattacks throughout the course of the game. The deck is, you have to work through all the deck, and then you shuffle and redeal it. So you'll have a number of time increments, a number of German counterattacks, and a number of, not many, 2 I think, relief column advances. So you only get 2 of these per cycle of the deck. Every other relief column track advance was from our battalion commander. So I think we must have advanced our battalion commander, we must have gone through this deck maybe 2 times, and our battalion commander advanced the relief column marker every other time. We must have gone through 6 turns, I'm kind of calculating there. So yeah, battalion commander is up here. And as I said, he was used to advance that relief column marker to, actually, maybe, in fact, I think the last relief column advance was via an event card. And he was used to try and get my daughter. I think there's one case where we used him to get an advance, to get her to capture those guns in this location, which I think turned out to be dummies. Look, various other events pop up. You have obstacles. My daughter had this giant tree pop up in front of her, which counts as an additional obstacle, a movement obstacle in the space. I mentioned German reinforcements. You have machine gun rules as well. And whenever these machine guns came out, we focused our attention on clearing them out straight away. They're both high strength and can fire. We wiped them out so quickly that they were never much of a threat. The Grenadiers, you'll notice, are pretty strong. They're much stronger than the HKA, regimental fractions. What else? As I should mention, climbing the cliffs, okay, an important thematic element of the game. So you land on the beach, and when you get here, you need to fire projectors. And you'll either get a no hold, a shaky hold, or a firm hold on the cliff's edge, depending on what you get. So if you have no hold, you need 3 advances across. If you have a shaky hold, as in this circumstance here, my son needed 2 advances to cross. If you have a firm hold, you only need 1 advance to get up that cliff X. And as I said, he just really struggled. He only had a shaky hold there. You can add to that. You can roll, try to fire, throw your grappling hooks again, but he just struggled so much with that. And you can see his rally point marker is still way back here. The rulebook. Let me talk about the rulebook. It is, as I said, light to moderate complexity, and if you've played it in Magnificent Soul, you'll find this pretty easy to learn. We found some difficulties going back and finding certain things. There are little rules, so for example, what do you do when you hit the beach? Do you have to stop? We had trouble there. Little tweaks, but like I said, it's just easy to read. If you read through from front to back, it's easy to understand everything. Just a little bit difficult to go back and find particular rules. I'm trying to think of some of the rules we had trouble with. Prepared terrain obstacles. Okay, so they're in the unit movement section in obstacles, in prepared terrain obstacles. You can see this little section here. That's an important rules section indicating that when Germans occupy these buildings, barracks, gun emplacements, it costs an additional advance. All these obstacles use up a certain advance, G7D. So when the Germans there, they count as an additional advance cost. When there are no Germans there, you can move freely through, for example, the barracks. Took me a long time to find that for some reason. Now that I know it's there, I know it's there. What else? Look, as I said, most things are pretty straightforward. It's a good, clear rulebook. There are some inconsistencies between the rulebook and the components. So I initially had trouble setting up. I didn't know what some things were. Trying to think of some examples of that. I think it said something like place, where was it? Take the 20 gun location markers. And I think there's more than 20. I was thinking, well, I've got 26 gun location markers. And that I was stuck on that for a while, I think. I think that's the point I was stuck on. Yeah, little things like that, where there seem to be a couple of just inconsistencies. Very, very minor things, I should say, which doesn't detract from the quality of the game experience. Bring this all together. Look, as I said, I really love playing this. It's a great solo experience. There's a lot to explore, a lot of replayability. Every time you play through this, you'll encounter different events, different order of cards. You'll attempt different strategies. I'm quite surprised we won so convincingly first time. And I finished the game and we won. I'm thinking, what did we play wrong? And I think we just got very, very lucky first time. I said my daughter got very lucky wiping out that German counterattack. I had read the rules and was kind of familiar with the importance of flanking and support, so I was very careful to support my adjacent company. I had the middle section through here. As I said, we used our battalion commanders very carefully. Where we kind of tried to maximize our strengths. So where we had broken through, we pushed and tried to advance into a flanking position. Where my son was struggling, we didn't really focus too much on exhausting our efforts to help him out. He just kept pushing through the middle here. So 3 guns captured on the first day, 1 on the second day, a lot of German prisoners of war, but 1 fortune of war, but in particular, a huge time bonus and no Ranger casualties. As I said, by cautious play, we were careful not to get Ranger casualties. It is a race against time. If time runs out, you don't get that column relief column bonus, and you'll have fewer guns captured. But I think we just must have struck the right balance between push and caution. As I said, we didn't quite reach this is historically where the guns were located. We struck it out here on the right flank. We didn't quite, my daughter was trying to establish a roadblock in her company, didn't quite get to achieve that. That would have given us a couple of extra victory points, but like I said, we didn't need it. We got very lucky. So, as I said, this is my kids' favourite game of all time, from their words, both of them. It's a new wonderful cooperative game experience, and I highly recommend it. Very glad I picked this up recently. I can't believe it's taken me so many years. It was published in 2019 to actually get it, but yeah, loving playing it, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for a solitaire or a cooperative experience on Pointe du Hoc. I should point out my son has played D-Day Dice. He loves Memoir 44. This is probably just a very slight step up in complexity, but as I said, I manage the German counterattacks, I manage all the events that we're uncertain about, I've read the rules. They just focus on rolling the dice and seeing how far they can get, and as I said, my son loved throwing those incoming fire markers on the Germans and revealing them for hits and pinned results and all that kind of stuff. So folks, check it out. That is Herman Luttmann's Crowbar, The Rangers at Pointe du Hoc, June 6, 1944, published by Flying Pig Games. Thanks everyone, and take care.